Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's presentation. I'm excited to have you all here as we explore an important topic in education. Today's focus is on understanding why traditional education is not included in the curriculum context. We will clarify its historical and conceptual positioning, and we'll also look at a student query regarding the curriculum context in RSA. Over the next few slides, we'll delve into these issues and seek a deeper understanding. Let's get started. When we talk about the curriculum, we're referring to formal, institutional education systems. These are the structures put in place by educational authorities to guide learning. They include policies that shape what is taught, structured schooling that organizes how students go through their education, and official curricula that specify the content and skills students are expected to learn. Understanding the context of the curriculum is essential because it helps us see how education is designed to meet societal goals and prepare learners for the future. By examining these elements, we can better appreciate the broader framework within which teaching and learning happen, and how these influence the experiences of students and educators alike. Let's take a closer look at the history of colonial education systems. These systems were primarily introduced by colonial powers to serve their own interests, often focusing on controlling and shaping the education of indigenous populations. Moving on, missionary education, particularly Christian missions, played a significant role in this period. They established schools that aimed to convert and educate, but their curricula also reflected their religious and cultural values. Then we come to the apartheid era, specifically the Bantu education system. This was a state-controlled policy designed to enforce racial segregation, deliberately limiting educational opportunities for Black South Africans and maintaining racial hierarchies. It's important to understand how these systems were used as tools of social control. After the end of apartheid in 1994, we saw major reforms in our education system. Concepts like outcomes-based education, or OBE, and curriculum and assessment policy statements, CAPS, were introduced to create a more inclusive and relevant curriculum. These reforms aim to shift the focus from rote learning to developing critical skills and competencies. Finally, when we look at examples of curriculum contexts today, it's clear that our history influences current educational practices and policies. Understanding this background helps us appreciate the ongoing challenges and opportunities for transformation in our education system. Now, let's take a closer look at some of the key features of the formal curriculum. One of the main aspects is the presence of written policy frameworks, which serve as the foundation for what is taught and how it's structured. These policies ensure consistency and clarity across educational institutions. Next, we see structured schooling systems, meaning that the curriculum is organized in a systematic way, often divided into grade levels or stages, to facilitate student learning progression. Standardized assessment is another crucial feature. It helps to evaluate student learning uniformly, ensuring that everyone is measured against the same criteria. This not only maintains quality, but also provides accountability for the education system. Finally, we have state or institutional control, which indicates that the curriculum is governed either by government bodies or specific institutions, ensuring that educational standards and policies are adhered to. Altogether, these features highlight how formal curricula are carefully designed and regulated to create a coherent and consistent educational experience. They help us understand how formal education maintains quality and standards across different settings. When we look at pre-colonial and indigenous education systems, it's important to understand that they were deeply rooted in community life. Education wasn't just about individual learning. It was about strengthening the community as a whole. These systems focused heavily on values, identity, and survival, things that helped communities maintain their culture and navigate their environment effectively. In the context of South Africa, traditional education played a crucial role in passing down knowledge, skills, and cultural practices from generation to generation. It was informal, interactive, and deeply connected to the daily lives of the people. So, when we think about these systems, it's clear that they weren't just about literacy or academics. They were about shaping who people were and how they belonged to their community and culture. This foundation is essential when considering the broader history and evolution of education here in South Africa. Let's talk about the oral transmission of knowledge, which has been a fundamental way of learning in many traditional societies. This method relies heavily on learning through observation and participation, meaning that much of the knowledge is passed down by watching elders or experienced members of the community and by actively engaging in daily activities. Unlike modern education systems, there are no formal curriculum documents guiding this process. Instead, learning happens naturally within the fabric of everyday life. It's integrated seamlessly into daily living, making education a continuous, living experience. These characteristics of traditional education highlight its close connection to community, culture, and practical skills, which are passed on directly from one generation to the next. This approach reminds us of the importance of context and community in the learning process, which is a key theme in understanding different educational models. So, one of the main reasons why this topic isn't always included is because it's not formalized or documented in a consistent way. Unlike other areas that have clear records or established procedures, this tends to be a bit more informal and harder to pin down. It's also not structured like traditional schooling systems, which means it doesn't follow a set curriculum or standardized format. That lack of structure makes it more challenging to analyze within existing policy frameworks, which are usually built around formal systems with clear guidelines. Because of these factors, it doesn't always fit neatly into the way policies are designed or evaluated. This is why it's often overlooked or not given as much attention when developing or assessing policies. It's an important point to keep in mind as we look at how to better include and understand this area within broader policy discussions. Let's take a closer look at the distinction between traditional education and formal curriculum. Traditional education tends to be more informal and experiential, meaning it often relies on hands-on learning, personal interactions, and real-world experiences. It's flexible and adaptive, emphasizing how people actually learn outside of a strict classroom setting. On the other hand, the formal curriculum is more structured and institutional. This is what you typically find in schools and universities: organized lessons, standardized content, and clear learning objectives. It's designed to create a consistent educational experience across different settings. Now, when we analyze these concepts, it's helpful to categorize them differently. These are different analytical categories that help us understand their unique characteristics and roles in education. This leads us to a conceptual distinction. What sets these two approaches apart in terms of how we think about learning? Recognizing these differences allows us to appreciate the strengths and limitations of each approach and how they can complement each other in a comprehensive educational strategy. So, understanding these categories and distinctions is key to developing a well-rounded view of educational practices and improving how we design learning experiences overall. Let's now turn our attention to the introduction of missionary education. This was a significant moment because it marked the beginning of formal schooling in South Africa. Missionaries played a crucial role in establishing educational structures, often laying the groundwork for future developments. Following this, we see the start of documented curriculum development, which was essential for creating more structured and standardized education. These early efforts set the stage for the more organized systems that would follow. This period represents a key historical turning point, as it transitioned from informal, missionary-led education to more formalized, documented curricula. This shift was vital in shaping the educational landscape we see today. Understanding this phase helps us appreciate how foundational these early efforts were in the broader context of South Africa's educational history. It's a story of transformation, driven by key players and pivotal moments that continue to influence us. Let's start by looking at how focus begins with formal education systems. This means that we often see the initial emphasis on how education is structured and delivered through official institutions. From there, we examine policy changes over time, which helps us understand how educational priorities and approaches have evolved. Tracking these reforms and transformations allows us to see the bigger picture of educational development. Specifically, when we talk about tracing curriculum change, we're exploring how the content and methods within education have shifted to meet new societal needs or pedagogical insights. All of these points connect to the overall theme of understanding how education adapts and transforms over periods, shaping societies and individuals alike. When we look at exclusion in many contexts, it's important to recognize that it may actually reflect a Eurocentric bias. This means that the dominant Western perspective tends to overshadow or dismiss other ways of knowing and being. As a result, indigenous knowledge systems are often undervalued or overlooked entirely. And this is a real problem because it limits our ability to develop a truly holistic understanding of the world. When we exclude those different perspectives, we miss out on rich insights and alternative approaches that could deepen our understanding. From a critical perspective, we need to be aware of these biases and actively work to challenge them. Only then can we create more inclusive and comprehensive frameworks that respect and incorporate diverse knowledge systems. This slide really underscores how important it is to question whose perspectives are centered and whose are marginalized, especially as we aim for a more equitable and nuanced understanding of complex issues. When we talk about education, it's essential to focus on practices that are truly valid and effective. These are the approaches that respect and incorporate the diverse ways people learn and understand the world. Such practices not only support individual growth, but also help contribute to the shaping of identity and culture within educational settings. By recognizing and valuing indigenous knowledge, we take a crucial step toward decolonizing education. This means intentionally shifting away from a solely Western-centric perspective and embracing the rich, diverse knowledge systems that indigenous communities have cultivated over generations. Understanding and integrating indigenous knowledge is vital because it offers unique insights and holistic approaches that can enrich our overall educational framework. It helps foster a more inclusive environment where multiple worldviews are acknowledged and respected. So, in the broader context of our presentation, emphasizing these points is about creating a more equitable and culturally responsive education system, one that truly honors the identities and cultures of all learners. Let's take a moment to explore the importance of recognizing indigenous knowledge systems. These systems are rich, complex, and often rooted in centuries of tradition and experience. By acknowledging them, we not only honor diverse ways of knowing, but also create a more inclusive learning environment. Linking past and present learning approaches is crucial here. It helps us see how indigenous knowledge can complement modern education, creating bridges between historical wisdom and contemporary skills. This connection enriches our curricula and makes learning more relevant and meaningful for all students. Enhancing inclusivity in curriculum analysis is another key point. It means actively examining what we teach and how we teach it, ensuring diverse perspectives are represented. This process fosters a sense of belonging and respect among learners from different backgrounds. Finally, integrating traditional education into our frameworks isn't just about adding content. It's about valuing and embedding indigenous ways of knowing into the core of our educational practices. When we do this thoughtfully, we create a more holistic and culturally responsive curriculum that benefits everyone. Overall, this slide underscores how recognizing and integrating indigenous knowledge systems can strengthen our educational approaches, making them more inclusive, relevant, and respectful of diverse cultural identities. Let's take a moment to acknowledge both perspectives on this issue. It's important to recognize that different viewpoints can offer valuable insights and help us see the full picture. When we explain exclusion logically, we want to understand the reasons behind why certain groups or ideas might be left out, and this often involves examining structural or contextual factors. Now, providing a critical evaluation means weighing these reasons carefully, considering their validity and impact, so we can form a balanced understanding. Throughout this process, I encourage you to reflect on how these perspectives and explanations connect to the overall theme of our presentation. This reflection strategy is key for students because it promotes deeper thinking, helping you not just learn facts, but also understand the underlying dynamics at play. Remember, engaging with multiple viewpoints and critically analyzing them is essential for a comprehensive grasp of the topic. Traditionell bildning har funnits längt innan Roman 6 hade nagra formella system, på plats. Det naget som har överförts från generation till generation, ofta genom muntlig tradition, familjeanledning och samhällsbaserade metoder. Men för att första varför det, ofta utesluts från moderna diskussioner om utbildning. Mast Roman 6 erkänna, att dessa traditionella metoder, inte alltid följer samma strukturer eller standarder, som vara nuvarande skolor och universitet. Det därför då ofta utelämnas, för att du inte passar, in I den formella ramen av system, bedömningskriterier och certifieringar. Men det viktigt att kritiskt granska data, för att se vad Roman 6 kan lära oss av dessa tidiga, sätt att undervisa och hur de kan komplettera eller förbättra vårt moderna utbildningssystem. Det handlar om att första, att även om traditionell utbildning idag ofta kopplad till institutioner och formella strukturer, så själva kanon av kunskapsöverföring mycket äldre och mer mångfacetterad. Och att erkänna detta kan hjälpa oss att skapa mer holistiska och inkluderande utbildningsmodeller framöver. Traditional education, as we know it today, actually existed before the advent of formal schooling systems. It's interesting to recognize that learning and teaching happened naturally within communities long before schools were established. Often, this kind of informal education gets overlooked or excluded from discussions because it lacks the formal structure and standardized curriculum we're used to. However, including this traditional form of education is really valuable because it enriches our understanding of how knowledge is passed down. It gives us a broader perspective on curriculum development, showing that learning isn't just about textbooks and exams. It's also about cultural transmission, storytelling, hands-on experiences, and community practices. Recognizing these traditional methods helps us appreciate the full spectrum of educational practices and their role in shaping learners. So, when we think about education overall, it's important to remember that learning is a continuous, diverse process that existed long before formal systems, and including this history can only deepen our understanding of effective teaching and learning. Now, let's move on to comparing traditional and formal education. I want you to discuss this with a partner. Think about what makes each approach unique and how they differ in practice. Once you've had a chance to chat, we'll come back together and share some key differences. Our activity here is to identify those differences clearly. Remember, understanding these distinctions is crucial because it helps us see how different educational methods impact learning and development. So, take a couple of minutes to discuss, and then we'll analyze what you've found. Let's take a moment to clarify a common misconception. Many people think that traditional education is somehow inferior or outdated, but that's not the case. It's important to understand that traditional education is different, not irrelevant. It offers a different approach, with its own strengths and methods. Both traditional and alternative systems contribute meaningfully to the overall landscape of education. They serve different needs and learning styles, enriching the opportunities available to students. So, when we evaluate these systems, it's crucial to avoid jumping to conclusions or dismissing one because it doesn't fit a particular mold. Instead, we should recognize that both play vital roles in helping learners succeed. Let's talk about some effective exam preparation tips. First, it's really important to use clear definitions when studying. This means making sure you understand the exact meaning of key concepts and terms, which helps prevent confusion during the exam. Next, providing examples is crucial. They help you see how concepts are applied in real situations, making your understanding deeper and more practical. Including critical reflection is also vital. Take time to think about what you've learned, how different ideas connect, and where you might need to review more. This active engagement boosts your retention and comprehension. Now, when it comes to exam prep, keep these tips in mind. Plan your study schedule well in advance, review actively rather than passively, and practice past exam questions to familiarize yourself with the format and timing. Remember, these strategies are all about making your study sessions more effective and less stressful, ultimately connecting back to the overall goal of mastering the material and performing confidently. So, as we wrap up, let's reflect on how curriculum context mainly centers around formal systems. These are the structured frameworks that guide how we teach and learn, providing a solid foundation for understanding complex concepts. Despite the evolving educational landscape, traditional education remains a crucial element because it offers consistency, discipline, and proven methods that support effective learning. At the same time, it's important to recognize that critical thinking plays a vital role in deepening our understanding. It encourages us to question, analyze, and synthesize information rather than just memorize facts. This skill is what truly empowers learners to apply knowledge in real-world situations and adapt to new challenges. In conclusion, integrating these elements, formal systems, traditional methods, and critical thinking, forms a comprehensive approach to education. When we balance structured content with analytical skills, we create a more meaningful and effective learning experience. This, ultimately, aligns with our broader goal of fostering lifelong learners who are equipped to navigate an ever-changing world.